AI does not make judgments. That's our role. Okay. So to me, its role is to organize information so that I can make investment decisions faster and with greater conviction. Its role is to aggregate facts. It does tedious manual work so that I can be on the phone more, so that I can visit sites more, so that I can sit and think strategically. That's AI's role. This is my personal opinion. Its job is not to make judgments. That's my job.
This is the Real Asset Intelligence Podcast with your host, Derek Barker, sponsored by Nectar. Access your trapped liquidity today at usenectar.com.
Hello, welcome to the Real Asset Intelligence Podcast. I have with me Spencer Burton here. Thank you for joining. For our guest, Spencer is one of the country's most credible voices on actually applying AI to commercial real estate. He's a 22-year commercial real estate principal who's underwritten over $30 billion in deals the old-fashioned way, but then built out digital co-workers to underwrite over 50,000 deals the new way, the way of the future. Thank you, Spencer, for joining us. To start, I'd love to get just like your background. How did you enter the CRE world, and how does that bring you to what you're doing today?
Yeah, Derek, it's good to be here. So, and to your audience, really nice to meet each one of you. I started as a land broker actually, and bird dogging land deals early 2000s, pre-GFC. Went to work for one of my clients as a land acquisition guy, so continuing to bird dog deals just with a captive client effectively. And then got smacked in the face with what was the GFC. And, great learning experience for me. Learned quickly what the concept of an illiquid asset is. And I unfortunately was in land, the most illiquid of all assets at the time. But that actually opened an opportunity to move to Latin America, where I developed housing in Central America, spent 6 years doing that. Then went back to grad school and spent a couple of years in upstate New York in business school. While I was there, some of you may know Adventures in CRE, ACRE. I started that as a grad student at Cornell with a classmate of mine, Michael Belasco. Never intended to be a business, turned into one on its own. We started Adventures in CRE as a blog to share these predictive cash flow models that we were building in order to get jobs. We wanted to show that we had this skill, and so we started a blog and started sharing the models that we'd built. And it kind of took off. And so today, we're the most widely visited site of its kind. On the real estate financial modeling side, we train many of the incoming analysts and associates at institutional firms around the world. But anyway, so I go back to grad school. I come out to the institutional side of the business. So allocating or investing large pools of capital into really all of the major food groups in our industry. Went to work for a big life co, originating equity, debt investments. Ultimately was tapped to open Mexico for them, and great experience. All of that though leading to I was approached by the former CIO of Hines to help found a next generation real estate investment firm, and I promise it relates to our conversation. So my role as president was to figure out we had made the decision that we were going to. Our strategy was that we were going to invest institutional capital, so large pools, typically 100 million plus would be a minimum check size, institutional capital into sub-institutional property types, so small little assets. And we initially approached single tenant retail, great, and there's a lot of reasons for that, and then ultimately expanded into lending on single tenant retail. So we were acquiring, then lending, and then also developing. We then moved into what we refer to as convenience retail, which are unanchored strip centers. And my role was to figure out, how do you do that and turn a profit doing it? So how do you invest large pools of capital into small little assets, or in essence do 10 times the amount of work and the same relative costs, and you use technology. And in the early days, it was robotic process automation. It was using outsourced resources that could deliver efficiency to what we were doing. And then this thing, generative AI arrived, and it opened doors to efficiency that never had existed before. And in the ensuing years, those opportunities grew and grew and grew until a moment where I looked at my partners and said, hey, there's an opportunity for us to deliver this sort of efficiency to firms beyond us. And so I lifted out, I started CRE Agents. And what we do is we basically build the capabilities that make AI smart in real estate. And so if you're sitting in Claude, you connect Claude to CRE Agents. We've got 500 things that Claude can do specific to real estate when you're connected to CRE Agents. And that's what I do. And a ton of fun. And every week we build more. I say we're at 513 this week. We'll probably be at 550 next week. And each week we learn from our clients and we build more things that make AI useful to commercial real estate professionals.
That's awesome. And that's a long journey going from, bird dogging land to building CRE agents, AI agents. But it's a great story. It makes sense. So two, just threads there. One, more on the real side, and one I was just going to bring to today. How has CRE agents impacted the adventures in CRE business, the modeling business and training? Is it, I'd love to, how does that work? Are people coming in learning a completely different skill set? Does it, you talk about that dynamic?
Yeah, it's an interesting place I find myself because I'm sitting at the intersection of reskilling and retooling, both of which are in full force right now. Everyone must be reskilled to an AI native world. And look, we're thankfully a relatively slow industry. We hold assets for years, takes us months to close deals. Heaven forbid if it takes a few years for an organization to reskill, but every organization, every professional will need a reskill. And I think it's an exciting thing. It's somewhat synonymous with the early 1980s when the personal computer all of a sudden hit everyone's desk and you had to learn to turn on a computer at the start of the day. And in the decades that followed, more and more, right? It's like here we are talking to one another on that thing. And so who knows where we're going to be a decade ago, but every one of us must be reskilled. And that's when I wear my ACRE hat, it's about reskilling. It's about what do I need to know in order to excel in an AI first world. And then on the CRE agent side, it's about the AI competence. I say tool, but tool's the wrong way. It's almost like, okay, how do I teach AI to be useful to me, to be a companion, to be a coworker? And that's what we do at the CRE agent side of the business. Now, what's cool though, because I have these dual worlds, is I'm informed by the decisions I'm making on the AI training side, how to best reskill folks on the ACRE side and vice versa. How do I build tools that actually, the people that matter, the decision makers, the doers, the validators, tools that actually are useful to them? And I feel a little bit like I'm pitching my book. I don't really intend to. But to answer your question, it's kind of an interesting place that I sit. I'm very fortunate, and you know how life is. It's all by chance. It's not by chance. I believe in higher power and all that sort of stuff. But a lot of good luck has led me to a place where I can kind of see both sides of it, and I hope can contribute to the industry in a way that maybe others couldn't.
Yeah. 100% you're contributing in a way that many others can't. Because as you said, CRE is a slow industry. We get to see hundreds of operators they're not institutional. Okay, so we're not talking about a big life co. We're talking about small teams of sometimes just 3 or 4 guys, sometimes 10 or 15. So like that type of that type of size. 2 questions. One, who's the most important person in terms of adopting AI? And if you're a sponsor and you say, hey, I want my company to adopt AI, what should that mean?
Yeah. Okay. 2 questions. Let me tackle the first one. Actually, let me make a statement.
Okay.
It is my opinion that those who will most benefit, at least for the next few years, most benefit from this technology are the operators that sit in, call it the Nectar world. And why? Because that size of a team can get far more leverage from an uber efficient tool like AI than a 200, 500, 5,000 person team. Okay, so, and by the way, it's not just me saying that. Anthropic came out with a survey earlier this year around the efficiency gains across teams, and far and away, the smaller teams are getting the greatest lift. And so it is a real advantage. It's a leveler in a lot of ways, I think at the personal level and definitely at the firm level. So I'll make that comment. Now, in terms of how, say, a firm of that size, how they get started. And my guess is a lot of your audience, especially if they're listening to this, they probably are prototyping. They almost certainly used ChatGPT. And I say ChatGPT in the past because ChatGPT is not a great work companion, okay? It's a great chat vehicle. It's a great prototype to access generative AI. Mm-hmm. And the next iteration of that has been Claude. So Claude is a far superior work tool, or to unlock the capabilities of generative AI for work. It may not always be the case. For all we know, Claude may be the AOL of this trend, but right now, Claude is Claude and perhaps Manus, depending on the role you play or the type of. So if you're raising capital, Manus actually might be your better option because it's a better design tool than Claude. Either way, you start today by picking your AI platform. It's a generalist platform, and it's going to give you access to generative AI. Okay, those are the underlying models that make all this technology possible. And then what they do is they layer on top of that tools that unlock its capability. The problem with, say, a Claude is it doesn't know real estate. And that's like what we've committed our world to. It's, okay, we create this thing that lives in Claude, that makes Claude smart in real estate, or that makes ChatGPT or Manus or any AI smart in real estate, right? Mm-hmm. But anyway, so it starts with pick your AI platform, and then pick, say, a CRE Agents that delivers the capability layer to that, and then begin to use it. And too many people are like, I need training, and like, okay, I mean, maybe, yeah. What's interesting though is you're gonna learn so much more from, and you know this, Derek, because your team's doing this, right? You just need to use it. You need to start tinkering. Find someone on your team who is curious, and let them be the most curious in the team. Let them begin to tinker. Let them see what works, what doesn't work. Where am I getting my greatest lift? Where do I not get much of a lift? What can I trust? What can't I trust? I'll say this, if you tried this in 2024 and it didn't work, it's in a completely different world in 2026. It actually works now. Mm-hmm. You just need the right capability layer, and then you need someone who's willing to tinker with it. I think that's where you start. Maybe a long-winded answer to a simple question, but that's how I would think about it.
So say you're tinkering. So yeah, we've at Nectar, we've definitely done this. I've pushed the entire team. Hey, we're gonna tinker and we're gonna figure out how to make this useful every week. And everybody's stood up and got put on the spot and say, hey, what did you do this week? And show us. Share your screen. So yeah, that's one great practice to help you get up. But what was the first task or role or thing that you trusted AI with, or that if you're thinking about coming into this, that you could trust AI with?
That's a funny question. So 2 things that I tackled first at CRE Agents. The first was parsing a rent roll. Okay, so up until that moment, I had used software that charged 5 figures. I won't say their name because they're great tool. Many of you probably know it. And I created we call them tasks. Okay, the world calls it AI agents. I don't like the term AI agent because number one, it's more than one agentic thing. And it really is an orchestration of things. It's almost like baking a cake. And in order to bake a cake, you need ingredients, you need a process, there's some recipe that you follow, you need an exact temperature to produce a cake that you like. And so this whole concept of agent implies there's like this one magical thing that just does it. It's not how it works, okay? So we call it a task. A task is essentially a series of instructions that might use methodologies and might use tools to ultimately produce an output. The first task that we trained AI to do was parsing a rent roll. And this is a time, by the way, where the models were not very good. And so we had to chunk the rent roll into no more than 20 tenants at a time and send it to different models to get back then. And then we'd bring it all back together, and then we produce a unit mix table. We no longer need to do that. A single agent will handle hundreds and hundreds of tenants because they're so much better. But this is, 2023, parsing a rent roll. The second, happening at the same time, was mapping a chart of accounts, mapping a detailed income statement to a standard chart of accounts. I've got 200, 300 line items that my accountant handed me, and I need it rolled up to my standard chart of accounts, 15 line items, from potential gross income down through my other income line items to effective gross revenue, down through my operating expense line items to net operating income, perhaps layering in a CapEx line or two to my cash flow from operations. That's my standard chart of accounts. I need to map hundreds of line items to that so I can build a stabilized pro forma so that I can, it depends on the role you're playing, whether you're in debt or equity, whether you're sitting in a brokerage role, whether you're in an asset management team. It almost doesn't matter what role you do that. And those were the first two that we built. And again, in the early days, that was a hard task. Today, we could build that task in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is that those two tasks were both of them were businesses, multi-million-dollar businesses that up until that point were charging companies 5 figures, and now AI could do it.
Yeah, for a subscription.
Yeah, it's incredible now, the efficiency that those are two, now we're at 500 and something that we built. And over time, they get better and better, and it allows you and I to lift up and just quite frankly focus on the stuff that really adds value, the relationships, the decisions, and so forth.
Well, yeah, you say that they were multi-million-dollar businesses, but they were also just roles for an analyst, or tasks. So you've trained thousands of analysts to model by hand, and now a machine can theoretically do a first pass, and if you really, I wouldn't say, because some people say, well, I dropped the rent roll in the deck into ChatGPT and it just gave me something that was terrible. You might have to do something more than that. But what is the analyst's job now? Versus, what are you training the analyst for now? And what can you trust the AI with, and what can you not?
Yeah, two really good questions. First off, I tend to be an optimist when it comes to things like this. 200 years ago, 90-something% of us worked in agriculture. Now it's less than 2%. And had you told a farmer or a farmhand in the early 1800s, one day less than 2% of the population would be working in agriculture, the assumption would be everyone would be out of a job. But what happens now, we have podcasters. They have people managing you can't even imagine the roles that will exist that are unlocked from this technology. So that's my first comment about this. I tend to be an optimist. I think that what we do will change, how we do it will change, but that doesn't necessarily mean the end of real estate work, the end of analyst work. What I do think, though, for the next, call it 5 years, maybe 10 years, is that the analyst role lifts one layer. In fact, when I'm teaching, because I still view the fundamental skills to be as important to learn as ever. Every one of us, and around the 4th grade, my Mrs. Jackson, everyone had their Mrs. Jackson. Mrs. Jackson taught me how to do long division, but by hand. And for those listening, what a bear. Long division by hand takes forever, especially the first time or the second time or the third time. And you're old enough in the 4th grade to be asking questions, and you've been using this calculator. And so you're like, Mrs. Jackson, why am I doing this? There's a calculator that'll do this for me. And she insisted, show your work or you get a 0, right? And by the way, that's the case for math all the way through school. And when you're in the 4th grade, you don't get it. Now that we're adults, we understand why. Yeah. And why? Because I'm not going to hand to you, Derek, or to me, a calculator and say, do the long division without knowing why the inputs to that produce the output, and then make a multi-million, and in many cases, multi-hundred of million, multi-billion-dollar decisions. No more than I'm going to get in an airplane and fly from New York to London without at least 2 pilots in the cockpit, even though the technology exists. There are certain decisions that we want someone who understands why things are the way they are, so that that person can validate its output. So that's the first comment. I would say, like, the fundamental skills matter as much as ever. And so if you're early in your career, your role right now is to understand why things are done the way they are. And when you are managing an AI, understand why the AI does what it does, so that your job becomes to validate or to approve or to review and accept or clean up the outputs from that AI. And the second question is about, like, what can you trust?
And what can you certainly not trust?
And what can you not trust? Yeah. Okay. So CRE Agents exists because most of us are not good at engineering outputs from AI. And it is truly engineering. Many of us are great at relationships, which quite frankly is the most important skill in our industry. And if anything is going to become more and more important, like the relationship piece, that's what matters. Okay. Then there's other things, also judgment. So making decisions, like, that's incredibly important. And if you think about most of the manual things that we do, parsing a rent roll, it's not about parsing a rent roll. It's about making an investment decision. And we need it in organized in a way, a output that we can trust, so we then make an investment decision. That's what that's about. And so what can you trust? There's a framework that I teach when I'm teaching AI. And so I'll just quickly teach it to your audience. An output that comes through a framework like this is an output that I trust. Okay, and I call it the optimal output framework. And what is an optimal output? An optimal output is an output that requires less effort, less time for me to review and approve than just to do the thing manually on my own. Okay, now notice, review and approve, every output in our industry still needs a human eye that reviews it and says, yes, this is acceptable, or no. And if it's not acceptable, understanding why and making the tweaks so that I have an acceptable output. And again, an optimal output is one that last step takes less time than me just manually doing the thing on my own. To produce an optimal output, you need 3 ingredients.
Okay.
The first is you need the tool to produce the output. And the tool isn't just a ChatGPT, okay, or Claude. The tool are the things that the AI uses to produce the output. Okay. So for instance, let's say that we build an AI that it takes an offering memorandum that hits our inbox and produces a go, no-go decision at the end.
Okay.
I need a tool that can read my email. Okay, that's a tool. I need a tool that can download the PDF from my email. I need a tool that can open up that PDF and extract the contents of that PDF without losing any of the context of that PDF. And some of those tools used to be bad, right? So I need the tool. And the tool is not so much ChatGPT as it is all the things that a Claude or a Manus or a ChatGPT use in order to perform its role. That's one. Number 2, the instructions. Okay, so instructions, sometimes you hear this as prompt, okay? The instructions are what to do, the objective for what we want to do, okay? And there's prompt frameworks for this, and actually they've gotten similar. So I use what's called the Rhodes framework: role, objective, description, example, sense check. That's overcomplicated at this point in time. It's really about objective and perhaps some guidance on how to get to that objective, the instructions. The third, and this is the most important, is I need the knowledge. And knowledge is 2 parts. It's data, the most challenging to get in our industry, and that's usually why you get a crappy output from AI, is you don't have accurate, complete data. And you need the methodology. So Derek, when you guys are building skills with Claude, that's the methodology. It's that's one half of the knowledge ingredient to ultimately produce an optimal output.
30 seconds. What's a skill?
Yeah. So a skill is the encoding of your process, of your methodology. So for instance, I might write a skill that teaches an AI how to do a site visit. Okay, so I've done thousands of site visits at this point in my career. And so when I'm writing a skill, I say, okay, what am I looking for when I do a site visit? And you go, why would you teach AI to do a site visit? Well, It can look at street view, assuming it has the right tool. It can look at satellite images. And so if I write a skill, I can give that to AI and it can help me so that when I actually do my site visit, I can have a more productive site visit, or my people can have a more productive site visit. That's a skill. It's like the methodology for the things that you do. You actually asked a question earlier. It's like, who is the most valuable? Something along those lines. Those who can get the greatest lift out of AI are those who already have that methodology, like the experience, and they can take the seasoning and they can encode that seasoning into their AI via skills, such that that AI can almost be a replica of them. And so anyway, when you have those ingredients, you have an output that you can trust. When you don't have all of those ingredients, if I don't have the data, all of the data that I would need, if I haven't encoded the skill, and if the AI doesn't have the right tools and doesn't have the right instructions, I can't trust the output. And that's why I say most of us are not good at being engineers of AI, because it's more than just do this thing and expect an output. You're going to get an output that you can't trust.
So you described three things. This is great. So I'm a sponsor. I have a dozen apartments, let's say, and in a small team. What should I be thinking about? Should I be thinking about building this myself? Just say, hey, we're going to take a couple weeks off to encode all of our knowledge and to create skills and to figure out where the data's come from, and or versus buy. Should I be looking for where's the right product out there that I could use? Like what advice would you give to the sponsors that are out there? Thinking about this.
So that is what CRE Agents is. Okay. And I don't mean to sell my book. I really don't. But you teed it up too perfectly.
Yeah.
What CRE Agents is we've encoded methodology, instructions, and we point it to the tool to produce an output. Okay. And so some customers say, hey, we want to just use what you've built and we're going to adapt it to our process. So, some clients say, can you build it for us? And we build a custom, we call them catalogs. It's basically a series of tasks, and we build a catalog for them. Some, especially on my training side, they want to do it themselves, and I don't blame them, right? I'm a kind of a DIY sort of person. And so if I were in your sphere, Derek, I would build it myself. I would create my library of skills, okay? I would create projects in Claude. Each project would have preset instructions. Each project would be related to a functional area of my business. So I'd probably have a sourcing project. I'd have a due diligence project. I'd have a closing project. I'd have an investor reporting project. I would have a asset management project. I'd have these different projects, and each one of those in the custom instructions would be what to do, how to do it. I would write skill after skill after skill, how I do each one of those areas. And then I would choose an AI platform. Today, I would use Claude for 90% of it. And then in my investor relations group, I would use Manus because of its presentation capabilities. And I would build it myself. And some on your audience are like, yeah, that's what I want to do. And I have like that engineer's mind. Most of our industry doesn't really it's like, I'm a real estate guy. I'm not really a builder. And that's why CRE Agents guy.
If you've done the work, you've built the skills, and you have you have agents that are doing the work. What if your AI is producing an opinion that's different from, say, your investment committee? Who are you trusting? Which one are you going with, and why?
Okay, in my view, AI does not make judgments. That's our role. Okay. So to me, its role is to organize information so that I can make investment decisions faster and with greater conviction. Its role is to aggregate facts. It does tedious manual work so that I can be on the phone more, so that I can visit sites more, so that I can sit and think strategically. That's AI's role. And so if AI is disagreeing with me, I am engineering it wrong. That's not its job. Its job is not to make this. Again, this is my personal opinion. Its job is not to make judgments. That's my job.
Yeah.
Its job is to to multiply my output. Let me look at twice as many deals, 10 times as many deals, double my AUM without adding headcount. Like, that's AI's job. My role, it's about judgment. It's about managing relationships.
if you're gonna start, if you're starting from scratch, and I know you mentioned talking the CRE book. Talk the book, all right? Like this is the shot. Like what people are trying to understand. Like, what am I gonna get if I call Spencer and figure out like, hey, I want to do it. I want to become like an AI first company. Like, what is it? The first task a digital coworker does. And how long do you take? How much do you budget? Walk us through, like, you're setting this up. You're setting up a group that's going to buy 5 apartment complexes a year. Back in your old days, they're going to be doing the sub-institutional assets. Okay, so they're doing twice as much work in order to keep doing twice as much work. How are you building that from scratch? What's the technology stack? What are you actually doing?
Yeah, look, it starts with a end in mind. So too many people are like, I'm going to adopt AI and see what happens. Like, no, it doesn't work that way. Now, we were fortunate at Stablewood. That's the firm that I worked at. We were fortunate because we already knew what our objective was. It was, we need to buy 10 times the number of assets at the same relative cost. And therefore, we could measure success. So everyone here needs to say something like, okay, I've got a team of 7. That team of 7, we do $700,000 a year of asset management or of acquisition fees. We do X amount of asset management fees. We've got a certain number of, X AUM. Okay. Whatever it is, I've got some sort of metric that is my baseline today. And I want to grow that metric without growing headcount. Okay. So I say, all right, I want to take 700,000 of acquisition fees to $1.4 million. Now, some of it's out of my control. You got market factors and all that, but like all else being equal, I want to do that. And that then gives you a bit of a North Star for, okay, what do I then tackle first? What do I tackle second? What do I tackle third? This is a marathon, not a sprint. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good. If I can take a task that right now eats up 1,000 hours of my analyst time in a year, and my analyst can spend 100 hours instead of 1,000 hours on that, that's a 10x multiplier. And if I'm only looking to double my acquisition fee revenue, a 10x multiplier is accretive to my objective. Therefore, that's a task that I should work on first. And I've got this thing, it's called the multiplier framework. It's basically, we teach it, just Google multiplier framework. You'll find a free version of it, but it's basically like how to do this. But you start with 1, you pick the task that is a high impact and relatively high feasibility, or automating that thing is relatively easy. And you start there, and then you do the second one the second week, and the third one the third week. And it really should be 1 a week. Now, as soon as you automate it, it's not done.
And when you say you're talking about this, the CEO of the company or the founder.
Yeah.
You're talking about, like, he asked his analyst, like, how have you seen it work? Like, how have you seen people do it successfully?
So either the company builds it or we build it. Either way, it starts with identifying what work do I want to automate first. And then who builds it, whether we built it or whether we've pre-built it and use one of our pre-built tasks, whether you build it, whether we build it for you, it almost is irrelevant. Mm-hmm. You got to pick the first thing that's going to deliver the greatest lift with the easiest execution. You start there. Week 2, you iterate on number 1 and you launch number 2. Week 3, you continue to iterate on 1, you iterate on 2, and you launch 3. By week 4, number 1 is just on autopilot. You're iterating on 2 and 3, and you're launching number 4. By the end of 52 weeks, you've got 52 things that you've automated that almost certainly have delivered the lift. Again, all else being equal, you got market, and I mean, this audience knows well too well the market probably has a greater influence than anything else, but you've now brought a level of efficiency to the organization. And look, at us at Stablewood, this was not like over 3 months we built all the automation. It was, they continue to iterate. Mm-hmm. Every single month, it's what are we going to work on this month? And so it's a new discipline for an organization to say, we have to become AI native. It's a marathon, not a race. What are we going to do this month? And iteratively in the months and years that come, you'll become more and more and more efficient. to the point where, yeah, you'll be doing 10 times the volume you did before. And you'll ask, how did we ever do it the old way? I mean, you got to imagine like pre-computer, pre-internet, how inefficient things were. And now that's how we generally recommend to organizations that they deploy AI.
Nice. Well, I want to pivot a little bit to, so you've built this business. What does the business look like now? The AI for CRE business. How many people do you have? Where is it now? Like from where it starts, where it's now, and then how do you see the future, or what's y'all's kind of growth path?
Yeah, sure. So on the training side, we have 2,500 in our community, and that's an AI community for real estate. That's distinct from the real estate financial modeling side of our training business. So on the AI side, we have this community. It's called AI Edge, and those are people that want to build. And so we're doing training, and it's training on how to actually be the engineer that trains AI. That's on the AI Edge side, and that grows steadily every single month, and it's so incredibly fun. And those are like the nerds. Okay, so if you're like the AI nerd, come hang out with us at AI Edge, and we build together. The CRE agent side are for the firms who are like, I'm not an AI engineer. I'm a real estate guy. You do the building. I just implement that in my business. We have 60 clients right now, and that's a steady growth every month.
Nice. This has been awesome. What if are you still investing in real estate at all? I guess I'd love to see. What's your view on the market? What are you seeing there?
I am a partner in right now. I'm doing outdoor hospitality. Okay, I say I. So my partner, who I'm technically a GP, but he does most of the work. My role really is to bring the AI automation to the business, but it's outdoor hospitality. Here's why I like outdoor hospitality. A guy that spent a good portion of my career on the institutional side of the business. I saw certain assets go from sub-institutional to institutional, self-storage being one, SFR being another. In fact, when I started my career, even though I didn't sit on the institutional side of the business, multifamily in the early 2000s was not a traditional institutional property type. Right. It was all office. It was retail, a little bit of industrial, but it was office, right? I mean, you look at the Odyssey Index, it was like 60% was office in those early days. Mm-hmm. And so I have seen certain property types go sub-institutional to institutional. And why I like outdoor hospitality is it's as sub-institutional as it gets right now. Mm-hmm. It's very management intensive. But self-storage used to be very management intensive. And technology came in and it delivered efficiency, and it unlocked that property type for institutional capital. Industrial outdoor storage is another example of that, right? That through technology and also some tailwinds of the industrial space has made it IOS an institutional asset type. I think outdoor hospitality has that potential. Nice. So we're building it's privately owned portfolio. I hope to own it, in my entire life, and it's also fun because you buy assets in cool places. Last week we closed one in the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee. So
cool places to go visit. You can go,
cool places to go visit. Exactly. So I continue to scratch that itch. Look, I'm a deal guy, so I love real estate. I've always been in the business. It's a business I absolutely love. And yeah, that's where I scratch my itch right now. And then I do have passive investments, LP investments in syndications, really across property types, with syndicators that I really like. And so oftentimes, it's a diversification play. It's an opportunity to nerd out in a. I allocated equity for a time in my career on the institutional side, so it kind of feels like I get to allocate some capital of my own. So I do that as well. Yeah. Thanks for asking.
No problem. All right. Well, this has been great. The last question I have here. So at Nectar, again, we are providing capital to sponsors, whether it be lending them money to their sponsorship entity or providing equity capital for helping with their co-GP co-invest. Most of these guys have, let's say 10 to 20 property portfolios, so sub-institutional assets a lot. For the typical syndicator or GP or small fund operator, what do you think is going to be the biggest difference in how they work in the next 12 months? Okay, no one knows. Of course, 10 years, who knows? But in the next 12 months, what's going to be the biggest change, and what do they do now to make sure they're a part of that change?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if this is a new answer, but it continues to be the best way for either young syndicate, and young not in terms of age, but in terms of time in business, and or small. We still very much are in an industry of information asymmetry. Those who are in the know do well, and those who aren't struggle. And it doesn't matter whether you're using AI or you're not. And if you are using AI, if you have the data, it's going to make your AI actually useful. And so the small guy with some local market expertise, some local market knowledge, are going to have an advantage over big capital that may have a lower cost of capital and staying power that maybe you don't have. But you know something. You know a tenant that's moving that no one else knows. You know a neighborhood that's on the rise that doesn't show up yet in the numbers. You've got relationships to the people that can do the CapEx projects at a lower cost. Like, you have the local market knowledge to get started. And if you have aspirations of something big, that's awesome and that's great. Prove out a concept in your local market where you know things that no one else knows. And I say no one else knows. You're like, well, there's lots of other people I'm competing with. That's fine. When I say no one else, I'm talking about the rest of the world. Okay? You're sitting in your submarket and there's half a dozen of you who are playing in that submarket. You know things that almost no one else knows. Use that to your advantage. That's the greatest strength in real estate, and that's where you can win.
Nice. Spencer, thanks a ton for joining us at Real Assets Intelligence. This has been great.
Thank you, Derek, for having me.
And thank you for listening to the Real Asset Intelligence Podcast. Find out more at usenectar.com.